our custom at this church to designate the first Sunday of each month as Celebration Sunday, like today. It's at least one time each month where we get to recognize the good, the God in the world and in each other's lives. We also share many examples, personal experiences, in what we call miracle moments, where we show how we've applied SOM principles to a particular situation or have been following them, and that they really do work in our lives through the experience that results. We'll hear a couple people later in the service share such experiences. And when we do that, when we share experiences and stories, when we help celebrate each other's birthday, anniversaries, new jobs, toys, or other successes, whatever they are, celebration is a simple way to show love for one another. The more we do it, the more we practice this type of support and kindness, then the more we get to feel and experience that love in our own lives. It's a win-win situation. And that's what prompted today's topic. Love is a winning practice. Today is also Super Bowl Sunday, one of this country's most favorite sports days of the year, with the hype of the best ads, the best team and who's going to win, the best scores and stats and stats and stats, and whatever is promoted throughout the day. If we could just put that aside for a few minutes, we'll get there plenty of time later. But I'm of the opinion that the best type of winning is when we succeed in having harmonious and loving relationships with the people in our lives. And not just with the people we actually like and love, but with the ones who test us and our resolve to be more loving. There are plenty of relationship challenges to overcome in life. And I would venture to say that being in constant conflict or disagreement with the people we care about should not be one of them. So what do we do when that one person we're trying so hard to like or love just keeps rubbing our emotional state the wrong way? When one statement can upset our planned serenity, or when we see patterns repeating themselves, do we call a timeout? Go into overtime? Maybe do some deep breathing? Do we try another play? Another approach to express your viewpoint or make extra effort to listen without judgment? Or do you just end the game, end the relationship, say it's not worth the constant headache and turmoil, call it quits, and walk away? Game over. Those are all definitely options we may have considered or experienced from time to time. Today we're going to explore some choices we can make in regard to loving relationships. I like to start these topics with words and ideas from religious science founder Ernest Holmes. And when we look at loving relationships, the first one we must pay attention to is our relationship with our God self. Since we spent quite a bit of time with that in January, that part of the topic today will be brief. The first reading is from the textbook. The mind of God is infinite. The mind of man is some part of this infinite creative mind of God. Therefore, the mind of man is as infinite as is man's capacity to understand his true relationship to God or Spirit. The mind of man is continuously unfolding into a greater recognition of its real plan in the creative order of the universe. It does not yet comprehend its own power or scope, but it does know how, in some measure, to consciously cooperate with the infinite. To consciously cooperate with the infinite. Let's follow up with this next bit from Holmes and see how the two pieces relate. He said the mystics did not contend or argue with people. There was nothing to argue about. They saw and knew. They are the great revealers to man of the nature of the universe and the relationship of man to God. A little clarification here. The term mystic means one who senses the divine presence, which means we, every one of us, is a mystic. When we sense the divine presence within, and I trust that to be true about all of you, about all of us, that at some time in your life you sensed the divine presence. Haven't you?
Yep.
So as a mystic, connecting with that divine presence, first and foremost, connecting with and developing, consciously cooperating with the infinite, having a greater recognition of the God presence in each person in your life, there's no reason to argue with anyone. You can laugh now. It's a simple conclusion, but a really challenging one too. When we know and understand our true relationship to God or Spirit, when we continuously unfold in consciousness and recognize the love and creative order of the universe, when we comprehend the power of our minds to create, then we can better cooperate with the infinite, with creative mind, with spirit, with others. So if we can do that, if we can learn to cooperate with the infinite, to work within the laws of mind, just like we learn to work within the laws of nature, it should be a simple and easy proposition to work within the laws of relationship, to use our mystic connection to the divine presence and not argue with people. And I would say that most of the time we do that. We follow the rules of relationship with the people in our lives. We are aware of our divine nature and their divine nature, and we don't argue with most people. We get along. We cooperate. We assist and support and celebrate. We encourage one another. Some people we even like. A few close to us, family or non-family, we genuinely love. We appreciate them, honor them for who they are. We're happy for their successes and proud of their evolution and growth as humans, as spiritual beings. We can love their divine nature, call them friends and family, and not be attached to whatever outcome they have in mind for themselves. We can each have our own points of view. We're willing to be us and let them be them. So why is it so difficult to be that way with everyone in our life? What gets in our way of having loving relationships with all people? Sometimes, especially in close relationships, whether it's on the job or with a married couple or significant other, it's our human thinking, what we often refer to as ego, that steps in and mucks it up. It's naggy-naggy, wanting to be right about a certain matter, to control the outcome of a project or person or job, to be recognized properly for the effort or accomplishment, or feeling that not enough appreciation has been given or acknowledged for their effort. What I have come to know is that if I don't love myself, respect myself, care about myself, and am conscious and dedicated to my precious relationship with the divine, to trust that my union with God is solid and more important than anything else, if I don't love myself first, then all the words from all the other people in the world will never be enough to satisfy that craving for more love. If I don't stay connected with my divine source and recognize the divine love that is always with me, I really won't be able to share it with people around me. Not at that deeper, spiritual, unconditional level. The two great commands of Jesus were: 1, love God. 2, love your neighbor as yourself, which implies you actually love yourself. And hopefully in a way that is uplifting and positive and unconditional. There's a story about a highly respected minister who was eating lunch at the Unity Inn when the conversation turned to love. His comment was, "The hardest commandment I have is to keep is the one to love your neighbor as yourself. I've seen how my neighbors love themselves, and I don't want to be treated like that." Holmes wrote that love is a complete unity with life. Love is a complete unity with life. If we were to just love God or just love our fellow humankind, we'd be out of balance with life and with ourselves. We have the opportunity to look for God in each other every day, every opportunity to see the divine in one another's eyes and hearts, windows to the soul. It does not mean to be a doormat for people, to abuse you. Love yourself enough to walk away if you need to have boundaries, to tap into the divine wisdom to know when it's time to do that, to protect yourself and your heart, and to forgive as well, and love them anyway, while you take care of you in the process. Love starts here, with you and God. That's the most powerful, winning relationship you can have. It can and will see you through the most trying and difficult situations and human relationship challenges. Again and again, we get to practice. As I browsed the internet sites for doing my research for this talk, one challenge that came up time and time again as the #1 issue or problem for relationships was in the area of communication. Communication is key. Whether we're talking about members of a committed relationship or family members, whether it's the person in the next cubicle or the clerk at the grocery store, whether it's the lawmakers and politicians, whether it's leaders of countries across the globe. Communication happens in every human connection, some better than others. Communication and connection is often easier with those people we like, respect, maybe even love. At least most of the time. They're the ones we share our hearts and soul with. We can be honest about our feelings. We can express the truth about what we think or do or believe. We can be our authentic selves. Don't you love those relationships where you get to be you? Then there's the extreme, those other relationships. The ones that just drain our energy. A friend of mine refers to them as energy vampires. They're the ones, according to relationship experts, that leave us exhausted. The ones that tap us dry and they come back for more. I have a couple of those people in my life. They've become my examples of how not to be. I get tired of the endless fighting, the finger pointing, the blame and criticism. It's hard to be around them for very long. These are the folks that really test my mystical capabilities. And according to the Dalai Lama, they're called sacred friends. These are the times when I know to be really prayed up before I visit them. And where I get the chance to practice forgiveness and letting go over and over again, sometimes right in the midst of the conversation. I get to stay conscious, stay aware, and to be reminded to tap into divine love in every moment so I can continue to see the God nature of who they are, which is often clouded by insecurity, fear, lack or not enoughness, guilt and shame. It covers up who they are. Jack Addington wrote, "The disciple Paul gave us some of the things that love is not. Love is not jealous or boastful, not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. When a person expresses any of the foregoing traits, those things which love is not, one feels it and notices it. All those traits are basically expressions of fear." If we can make the attempt to love in every human relationship, to have faith rather than fear, to practice coming from the divine center, our divine center, then everyone wins. Here's more guidance from Holmes. One alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. Knowing this in your thought, work in perfect peace and calm. Always expect the good. Have enthusiasm and above all, have a consciousness of love, a radiant feeling flowing through your consciousness at all times. Treat, as in prayer, treat yourself until you have an inner sense of unity with all good. Okay, so let's say you're doing your best at this consciousness work of being connected with divine love. You can see yourself getting stronger, having loving feelings for people more often or around you in all different kinds of situations. Yet once in a while, something will be said or happen, and you notice yourself feeling hurt about it. What do? One thing I know not to do, don't beat yourself up over it. Don't let that critical voice in your head take up residence for days at a time. I know it can happen, believe me. I'm my own worst critic. Oh, Maggie is. Shower some loving kindness on yourself. Forgive yourself. And take a look at the situation from an objective standpoint. Holmes tells us the first step toward healing is one of honest self-analysis. Honest self-analysis. Find out if there's anything you need to clean up. Make amends to someone about the situation if necessary. And keep your side of the fence clean in the neighborhood of your mind. It's a full-time job, right? You might even need to consider forgiving the other person. Highly recommended in order to completely heal the situation. And that can take time. However, the sooner you let go of the hurt and pain, whether the result of someone else's unkind words or your own, or something you've done to yourself, the sooner you can release that negative energy and ugly self-talk and stop repeating old stories of woe, the more quickly you can return to that calm and loving divine connection within. The textbook says, a thought of love is always healing. I know you know this to be true. Anytime you want to bring your heart and mind into relationship with God, all All you need to do is to be honest about it and with yourself and to think love. Anytime you want to experience a sense of oneness and healing presence of spirit, think love. Divine love, pure, unconditional love. So when I'm having a particularly difficult time finding that healing presence, I start with the easiest thoughts of love I know. First, about my dog Zelda, who loves me without condition and all the time, no matter what mood I'm in, no matter the words I've said, 20 minutes ago or yesterday. Then my grandchildren. The look on their faces as they walk through the door, especially after a particularly long absence. It's the purest human love I've ever shared. Love of grandchildren. After those two thoughts, those two examples, my head and heart are usually in a place of total connection with God. And as long as I stay in that space, I have a much better perspective of oneness. In that space, anything can be healed, forgiven, or let go. I can love deeply from that space. Jim Ockley said, we never really plumb the depths of love because we never try to give enough away. The messages we get about love are the same, whether they're from a song, from the holy texts of the world religions, from our knowing hearts. Love will find a way. It's our job as mystics to stay connected to that divine presence, to love deeply in all situations and with all people, starting with yourself. Love is our authentic nature. Share it. Seek it. Be it. Give it away. It's an unlimited supply. And express it as the blessings, love, and light of who you truly are. Will the practitioners please come forward?